गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गाना शॉट। गाना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Xi Jinping is in panic. Let me make that up front. And he's made a U-turn. And he's made a U-turn towards private industry. And that's when Japanification is setting in firmly. So today we're going to look at both these aspects. Why he's turned to the private industry and why Japanification. What is this Japanification all about? People talk of it, but rarely understood. This is Japanification. This is his U-turn to the private industry. Last week, out of the blue, he caught hold of every industry head, got them together, and spoke to them. Look at this, the two articles. The two articles from South China Morning Post, and and many more. There were 4-5 of them in a week. Why he's turned, what's going to happen, this, that, and all. Look at this elaborate seating plan which came out. Have a look at it close. All who's who of China's industry: BYD, New Hope, Jack Ma, and of course this new star called Liang Wenfeng, DeepSeek. All those chaps. The South China Morning Post even put out the table layout and everything. But why did it turn? This is the same industry which he broke. He broke the private industry in the period between 20 to 22. The education tech sector, the fintech sector, the shares, he just broke everyone. He just took Alibaba away from Jack Ma and sent Jack Ma into wilderness. He was put under this thing. And Jack Ma, for a good part of 2 years, was only lecturing college students and all that in rural China. अचानक क्या हो गया भाई? And the complete education tech sector he broke. At that time it was assessed he destroyed nearly $2 trillion worth of Chinese assets. 2 trillion finished. That was followed by the property. He put those 3 red lines for property, and then the property collapsed. The saying at that time was that if he didn't do all that, China would have anyway collapsed. So actually, they say that China, Xi Jinping did the best thing at that point of time. But it's not left him. It's not left him at all. Okay, let's understand this, what happened. I mean, it's a small clip. Have a look at it. Understand what happened, and then we will see the next story. Okay, here it goes.
Xi Jinping held a rare meeting with some of the biggest names in China's tech sector Monday. It marked a turnaround in Beijing's approach to its tech giants after a regulatory clampdown 4 years ago. The likes of Alibaba founder Jack Ma and DeepSeek's Liang Wenfeng were present at the highly choreographed event. Analysts said it was a show of support to rally private companies. The first images from Chinese state media showed Xi speaking to executives aligned in rows before him.
We hope that all private enterprises and private entrepreneurs will have the ambition to serve the country, strive for development, operate in accordance with the law, and promote common prosperity, so as to make new and greater contributions to promoting Chinese-style modernization.
Investors raced to see who was in and out among top business leaders. Images showed bosses from Huawei and electric vehicle giant BYD sat directly in front of Xi. Leaders from Chinese giants including Xiaomi, Meituan and Tencent were also reportedly present. Shares of Baidu dropped more than 8% after no top executive was spotted. Two sources said the founders of Baidu and ByteDance were among those who did not attend. Jack Ma's attendance was notable. The once high-profile entrepreneur largely withdrew from public life after the IPO of his fintech company Ant was stopped by authorities 5 years ago. That move was triggered by a speech he gave the same year criticising China's regulatory system. Analysts said Xi's move to gather business leaders underscores the new importance of private sector innovation for China to gain ground in technology. US tariffs have recently threatened more pressure on the world's second largest economy. The country has struggled with weak domestic consumption and a debt crisis in the property sector.
So that's it. Debt crisis, no consumption. The Chinese economy was just going down. DeepSeek or no DeepSeek and all that hype. He had to turn back to the private sector. And everyone said, if the private sector doesn't fire, China's sunk. So he had to turn back. But in that turn back, if you heard that video, there's something very important. They spoke of common prosperity, Chinese-style modernization. Though he's turned to private sector, they have to work under the pressure of the Chinese state and the Communist Party. Will they revive? $1 million question. Next point. The Chinese private sector was thriving at that time in 2021, the golden period of Chinese growth, when they were growing at double digits, 12, 13, 14%, 2010, 12, 13. They were unshackled completely. They could, and Alibaba was to become the biggest enterprise on earth when the plug was pulled out. The world was with them. What's the state today? The complete world is against them. Most of these Chinese shares are delisted and they're not doing well in stocks. The Chinese stock market is down and things are bad. Don't go by what people are saying. This is a big event which happened. Xi Jinping calling all the private sector and saying, let's grow. He said, this is like the east wind. It will come and go. But the private sector has to revive China. And China will have to, all that nonsense. Is it too late? Or is it, in time? We'll see. But the first indication, the stock market has not boomed. Individual shares have gone up a bit, individual shares have gone down a bit. But there's no boom in the stock market. Stimulus came, stimulus went. But all these efforts, DeepSeek, 𝗟𝗡𝗙, 𝗟𝗡𝗙𝗏, the stock market is still there. Investments are not coming in. In fact, today's investments are going out. So things are bad. And just think, and this is what Xi Jinping said during the conference. Sorry, let me put this. So that was the end of that video. This is what he said. Xi, he said the government's core principles and policies for the private economy, which are firmly integrated into the socialist system. So the private economy is integrated into the social system, will remain steadfast and unwavering. These policies will not change. If they don't change, unless the private sector is unshackled, how will it perform? While assuring leading entrepreneurs of persistent government support and wider market access, Xi urged them to contribute more to the country's tech innovation amid an intensifying rivalry with United States. This is straight from the article from China after the day he spoke. Common prosperity, you heard. If not, After this video, replay that. Then he also said, whatever the Central Party Committee has decided must be firmly implemented without compromise. Okay? And then Jack Ma appeared. And people feel that that is the most promising signal because he was completely against Jack Ma. If Xi Jinping could get Jack Ma and shake hands with him, though Jack Ma was kept to a corner, then you can imagine what is the state of the Chinese economy. I mean, people talk big, but yesterday I spoke to you. There are no marriages, there are no childbirths, no pensions. Everything is going down. People don't believe me. I have no problem. But the Chinese are there, they're suffering it. We'll see some other issues. But the first thing which I want to handle is the stock market. Just see the jungle in which all these buildings exist. This is not my photograph. Let me tell you, there will be Chinese who will come and troll. But my complete sources, 100% sources in this are from China. Look at it. This is the property sector. Now, the property sector still remains one of the strongest sectors in China. 30%. You can't wish away 30% of whatever 13, 14, 20, $50 trillion economy. That is not reviving. And as per some, history's wildest property boom is now history. Khatam, wo bhi history ho gaya. Anyone who knows economy will say China's housing crisis lies at the heart of the current economic downturn. Real estate prices have collapsed. Companies responsible for 40% of China's home fault are in default. Now the companies are being disaggregated. Like it happened to Evergrande. Break it up and sell it off. It's entered its 5th year and there is no sign of abating. You'll hear some articles coming, they're reviving, some sales has happened and all. But at the core of it, this is the problem. The middle class feel the squeeze because China, the people have invested in the property. We know all this. I'm reminding you all of this. That has not changed. So how will China become rich overnight? Household debt, what the common Chinese own, right? It is at a high of 145% of disposable per capita income. 23. It would have gone up only. Residential delinquency of mortgages is increasing. What is that? People not able to pay back loans. Homeowners are selling at discounted rates. And now China is considering a proposal where it relaxes its hukou residence restrictions. What is it? That if I am from Chennai, I can't buy a flat in Delhi. I can only buy a flat in Chennai. They're trying to take it off. That's for crowd, population control, migration control, and all that, which Mao put it. And that system has stayed. It has got plus minuses for China, but it allows China to exercise control over population. Hukou system. They want to relax it so that property can get sold. Bad shape. Reduce middle class incomes. So there's a consumption dip. Net income from property, which is the big chunk for the middle class, rent, interest, and dividends. And these are crucial components for households. They have gone down. Rent in 50 Chinese cities decreased 3.3% year on year. Rent, just the rent. Beijing, it's about 5.5%. Normally, the increment in any city in India is about 6%, 5-6% rent increase. So there are a lot of heavy debts, insolvency cases, and all the large developers are in problem. Property sales in 24 reduced by 12.9%. And 400 million square meters of newly completed flats are unsold as of May 24. This could have only increased, not decreased. See the worst slump on record. This is for newly built homes, existing homes, all are in decline. See the declining phases. That's the gray vertical blocks are the declining phases. They had a problem in 2015 when they had a stock slump, but they could recover out of it. But now that broad decline period is not coming back. These are facts of Chinese. And where is it? This is from the National Bureau of Statistics from China. This graph. In 2025, they expected 10% property sales drop because in 24, 13% dropped. 13% decline was there in 24. This year, it will be 10%. And this contraction is expected to last till 2030. That's why I keep saying 2030 to 35 is when China, because by the time this property construction and all this, they can start recovering, the population would have gone down. Thank you. Property falling, consumption, no consumption, correlation. These are all statistics, facts. China's consumer confidence index dropped sharply from 121 in January to 86.4 in December 24. 22, it was high, 123, and 24 last year, 2 months back, dropped down to 86.4. Anything below 100 is weak. Their property owners have very few alternates for investment. They can invest in stocks, but I showed you earlier, the stocks are flat. I'll show you later also. Today, as part of Japanification. Domestic stock market is in a period of long underperformance. And the rebound due to stimulus is not much. Urbanization has reached 2/3. 2/3 of China is urbanized. In fact, Xi Jinping has passed a law that people from urban areas can't buy land in rural areas anymore. They don't want people to buy land and sit in cities. They want people to go back. And they don't want the rural areas to be depopulated anymore. If that happens, China will collapse now. They've come to that stage. Because there are no people to do agriculture. Food security is coming next. This is the property sales drop. Have a look at it. In the past 14 years, sales has been the least. Bound to reduce even further. Brief revival last year fizzled out. Chinese bankers have stopped lending to real estate projects. International creditors losing patience. Debt restructuring not happening. It didn't happen for Evergrande. That's why it was taken over and broken up and sold off. There are 4-5 other companies in line. Okay, liquidation. Bank loans to Chinese builders gone down. Don't forget about 2010-11. They were just going up. That was the start of the boom. Now it's all gone. Now here comes the story. Now all this is happening. So people talk of Japanification. So what is Japanification? You have to understand what is Japanification. In the 90s, Japan went through a similar story. At that time in the 90s, if you remember, that was a time of Sharp, JV, JVC, Sony. All these were household names. Toyota, Honda. It was as if Japan is taking over the world. I mean, many of you wouldn't have lived there, but I lived through that time. For us, holding a Sony transistor was a great thing. Okay. It was the high end of technology. And then one day it broke. It broke due to many factors. I'll not go into it. I've already done a thing on Japanification. But it broke. But this is where you have to see what I'm going to now show you. Look at this. Okay. The dark green line with dots is the Japanese housing index. It kept falling. Here the base is, you have to understand, the base is not in calendar years to, right? This is in the number of years. For 12 years, the index kept falling in Japan. Okay. In just about 4 years, the housing index in China has reached 80. From 100, it has come to 80. It took 12 years in Japan to reach 70. Okay, 12 years. If you look at the Hong Kong index, which is the one innermost, what happened in Japan over a 12-year period happened in Hong Kong in just 3 years. And half of it has happened in China. Okay, more than half of it has happened in China already in 4 years. So it's going to be worse. Okay, as we go along. Look at the future path of the Chinese housing crisis. That one in red shows the Chinese housing crisis. Here in this slide, you see the Ireland housing index and the Spanish housing index and the Japanese housing index. It appears that China is following the Ireland model, or sorry, the Spanish model. If it follows the Spanish model, it will last another 10 years. It's now only 4 years into it. The Spanish model virtually never recovered. If it follows the Japanese model, it's even worse. So you can imagine what's happening in China. And these things don't run away. You can't wish them away. Xi Jinping, just because of bombed the propaganda of the Communist Party and this and that and some paid news coming, you can't wish away the fundamentals. That's why I'm showing you all this slowly. Yeah, in USA, property prices recovered after 15 years. Japan, Spain, and Ireland never recovered. China's housing crisis is only in its early stages. There's more to go. So I showed you the housing crisis and compared it with international trend lines. Japanification. Japanification is a dreaded word in China. Okay, it's a dreaded word. Same thing which I showed earlier. Unsold inventory of 13 trillion, 1 year's GDP. Estimated sales in 2025 is 1.3 trillion only. It used to be much more. It used to be something like 3-4 trillion in a year. The value of unsold housing stock inventory in the US at the peak of the subprime crisis in 2007-8 was 1 trillion, or 7% of the US GDP at that time. China's backlog is more than 10 times larger. It's equivalent to 70% of the current GDP. Can't think of it. That's why the unsold inventory, backlog, it all 70%. I mean, this 13% is based on the fact that today, assuming that China's GDP is 19 trillion. That's why 70%. Look at the growth rates. Very, very interesting. Okay. I'll show it closer. See the one official Beijing growth rate. This is the estimates of Chinese GDP growth rates. There are 3 estimates. Left one, 22-23, as officially given by China, is 3% and 5.2%. What does the Rhodium Group? Rhodium Group follows Chinese thing very closely. It says in 22, it was minus 0.6%. In the current year, it is 1.5%. Not current year, 23. 24, they have not analyzed. And it not, they said about 5%. We don't know what the thing is. It will come. Whereas the World Bank has a different way. World Bank says Chinese economy has contracted. So I put that famous thing called section average. I told you section average. In Forge, you put section average. What is it? That you're not sure what the distance to a point is. So you ask Natta Singh, "Bhai, kitna distance hai?" वो बोलेगा 100 गज ऐसा. इनसे बंता सिंह, तेरा क्या है? 80 गज ऐसा. तो मेरा अनुमान क्या है? 90, 80, 100 जोड़ लो, 270 by 3, 290. It's a section average. You average out the section thing. It gives safety also. Statistics, it's a close statistics, same thing. You put the section average, maybe China's growth is about 2%, but max 3%, but that is also giving it too much. I go with what the World Bank has said. China's economy has contracted and they're lying. That I've said always. This is the Japanese growth rate which happened 1960 to 1990. It was growing at about 5%. 91 to 2007, it grew at 0.94%. In 2008 to 2019, 0.5%. This is the Japanification which China is mortally scared of. See the stock market. See the right end. From 2021, the Chinese stocks have steadily gone down. They've steadily gone down. They took a sharp upturn 3 months, 4 months back when the stimulus was given. But after that, it has steadily gone down. Don't believe me? Go see this, Shanghai stock index. You'll see it. The same thing. The last end will come. This is a thing from there only after all. In fact, the source is theirs. You can see it closely. In fact, I'll show it to you also. I have no issue. See the source. Okay. It's there. You go on the net, you'll get it. Why should I keep wasting my time in trying to convince people? But it's down by 38%. If you had invested in Chinese stocks in 21, you would have lost 38% by now. That's the point. Okay, look at this. This is the Chinese index. Look at this S&P, Standard & Poor's. See how it's gone. It's up 60%. And this is down 38%. They're diverging. And then you say China is a rich country. My left foot. You see the stock market decline in China and Japan. Again, see it close. Okay. The red one on below is the Japanese stock market. This is month following the peak. The peak, whenever it happened, how it went down. The Japanese stock market in the 90s till about 2 years back went down 53%. In the case of China, it's down 36%, I had shown earlier. They've said, see, after the third plenum was held last year. That was when the third plenum was to, held under Xi Jinping. That's the time, if you remember, he fell sick and people said he had a stroke and all that. And that third plenum was an economic plenum to lift the economy. See where it has gone. And from then to now, he has done a complete switch going back to the private sector. Right? Okay. What is the future path of the CSI 300? The green one is the CSI 300. That is the composite Shanghai index. The bottom one is the Japanese. It's still not gone through. The Japanese data set is over a larger period, right from 90s to now. You transpose this on that and you see that there's more pain for China coming ahead. Unless it does a reversal. And will it do a reversal? With tariffs, Trump है ना, कुछ ना कुछ करेगा वो. You see what's happening in Ukraine war. And China has angered everyone. Incidentally, I'll do this later. China has taken its ships and fired off the Australian coast in a bout of gunboat diplomacy. That's an interesting thing. I'll talk about it, maybe over the weekend or something like that, or with someone. But the fact is, it has angered everyone. Everyone is worried. They'll trade with China. China will have a surplus, everything. But not like before. Their car industry is, I wouldn't say collapsing, but they're not making profit. There are a lot of issues. You see the growth of debt over the same time periods. There is more to grow for China. There's more pain to come. What happened in Japan to what happened in China? There's a long way to go. It's not as if China will flip, and China is giving stimulus after stimulus. Even this private sector is a lot of stimulus in that. I mean, these are all hard data. You go to Forbes. Forbes has done this analysis. I got all this data from Forbes. And they've all quoted Chinese sources. Japanese sources are international sources. See the debt. See the debt index going up. See how far ahead China's debt is in terms of growth. China is more indebted than Japan was at any point of time. It's something very interesting. When people are in pain, the way our economy is down and जब deflation हो रहा है, मंदी चल रहा है, the government spends money, and individuals and private people hold money back. That's a trend. You remember during COVID time, the government spent money. They gave rice, this, that, all that. All of us didn't spend during COVID. We say, yeah, we don't know what will happen tomorrow. So let's hold our money in bank. That's how it is. That's what it says. Public sector debt expands in a crisis as a result of fiscal stimulus and relief programs. Isn't it? Private sector sees an opposite trend as companies retrench and pay down debts to defend and rebuild their balance sheets. That's the logic. But the opposite is happening in China. The blue line is Chinese. And you see the Japanification and the Japanification of China. See the broad Japanification, what happened in Japan, and see that in China, what's happening. The private sector debt has gone up. The average individual is in debt. Whereas in Japan, when the crisis hit them, the private sector brought down their debt. And here, stimulus is being given in the form of debt. And if people are indebted, why will they consume? Will you consume? If I have a flat and that flat value has gone down by 40%, my stocks have fallen down by 36%. Will I go buy a new car? And I don't have a job, and my job has taken a pay cut. I mean, common sense lagaiye. Yeah, one more thing I want to tell everyone. All this I'm telling, like people say, sir, this is happening there, so what is it for India? My analysis of China, right, let me reiterate this. My analysis of China is not to compare India with China. Let me be very clear. My analysis of China is to analyze China because China is our adversary and we should know how to deal with it. How India does, whether India has exports or not, all that is later in the story. I'm not bothered. But I'm bothered as to how little we know about China and how we need to tackle it. When you say, let's accept investments from China, we should understand the repercussion of doing so. That is why I want every one of you to understand China, and I take trouble to get all this together. Not to compare it. China is a big country. There's no doubt. It's a civilization. I have full respect for it. It's a big economy. They've done wonders. If I start from now to the end of my lifetime, I can take lessons from China. But equally, I should understand what are the weaknesses of China. Tomorrow, when I deal with them strategically, militarily, economically, we should know how to deal with China. That's the point. Okay, let's get back to the presentation proper. The Chinese commercial banks, they have a huge problem. Loan growth, I showed you, it has stalled. Stimulus has not been able to spur consumer credit demand. So what do the banks do with their cash? They'll buy government bonds. This is an interesting thing. So let's turn to bonds. This is the 10-year bond yields. A lot of people are buying bond. The bond yield is going down. Don't ask me to explain bond yields. I don't know much. But this is a fact. After the third plenum, again it has gone down. Third plenum was in August last year. 6-7 months, it's gone down. The bond yields have not gone up. This is it. This is not my kalpana. Aap kisi go. All Chinese guys who are going to troll me, have a look at it. Right? Compare it with Japan. This is the difference. What's happened in Japan? What's happened in China? There's a long way to go for China. in terms of bond yields. They've fallen. In fact, the fall in bond yields in China is still shallow. As it unfolds, it might go down even further. This is the deflationary trend in prices. There is a deflationary trend in China. You have to accept it. I mean, there's nothing to accept. You have no choice but to know, because it is. Recent prices in China have also gone down. Just today, I think I was reading some article. Zero. CPI is static. Consumer Price Index. Not moving up. Unless those prices move up, there's no profit. There's no sales. Why are it's all going down? Because people don't have money. So a chap who's got stock, he's prepared to sell it. Simple. Fundamentals. Youth unemployment. Just going up and up and up and up. See where Japan was. In a corresponding time period, I'm not talking of 90s and all that. In a corresponding time period of years, see where China is. How high is China? There's a problem in China which we need to understand well, and then we'll deal with it. Now, this will have very serious political repercussions. It will have social repercussions, youth unemployment. If I am not married, or my son is not married, he doesn't have a job, you're not going to start a family. You're not going to get married. And then there's this classic case of decline in fertility, which I explained yesterday. I'll come touch it. Now, as there are fewer people, younger workers, more retirees. Who will support them? It impacts productivity and overall economy. I explained this. See, the last point is important in this. It undermines the social contract between the Chinese Communist Party and the people. You give me liberty, I'll give you happiness. That happiness is going. We know that. I'm just giving you another clipping. Largest absolute population losses happening in China. People don't understand. Oh, ये robot से काम चलाएंगे. यार, देखो, a nation is made of people. It's not made of robots. आप कल के दिन एक कुत्ता रखोगे घर में या आप रोबोट रखोगे? You can't make babies from robots. This is their marriage. I showed this yesterday. It's just taken an all-time hit in 40 years. It's something like their graph which is going down. And this is their population. Now let's see this. We know that. That's a recap. This is the correlation between what's happened in Japan and what's happening in China. This is the story. Okay? Fertility rates in Japan and China. Japan is in blue, China is in red. The Chinese have gone below the Japanese rates. They are aging at the fastest rate in history, in human mankind. And their population decline is happening at that speed. There's someone has said, whatever is happening in China will happen in India. It will not happen. It will not happen. Let me explain to you. I'll take this question. See this. Your every word will hit back at India eventually, which happened in China too. Sometimes we condemn the US. we find that we do the same things that the US did. Mingwu, let me tell you why it's happening to you. It's happening to you because Mao killed 45 millions in a famine. It was followed by Xi Jinping, okay, who brought this one-child policy. And then Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin and this joker Xi Jinping blindly went for economic prosperity and forgot the social aspects. Okay, understand this. Don't think in China, India will fall in this trap. We will not fall in this trap. You don't have population. You don't have population, you're not a country. Understand this. Okay. So people will write, ye hai na ek yap. Yesterday also he came and yapped. Hindu population is shrinking. Who told you so? You guys, these guys don't know their, backside from their elbows. So leave it at that. See the comparison. Population, age structure in China and Japan. This is what it is. It looks identical, isn't it? Can you make out which is Chinese and which is Japanese in this? Have a look at it closely if you want. This is it. Okay. So, you look at it anyway, Japanification is happening. There's no doubt about it. So, what's the net? What is Japanification? It's not one single thing. It's a basket. And it's a basket of socio-economic deplorables. High saving rates. People are saving because their future is uncertain, which means corresponding consumer spending will be zero. Near zero or even below zero interest rates. In Japan, at a point of time, you have to pay money to the bank to keep your money. Soaring levels of public debt. This is all part of Japanification. Overinvestment in infrastructure and industrial capacity. Rising unemployment. Demographic decline. Declining asset prices. Okay, with stagnant equity markets and a collapse of real estate values. All this has happened in Japan. Proliferation of zombie companies burdened by debt, drawing off resources into unproductive investments. Overall, a balance sheet recession. And this is irreversible in China for the simple reason population in China is decreasing, and is irreversible. Unlike Japan, where they have, and as long as this communist Raj continues, nothing will happen. One of the things which Japan could do was go back to their private companies, and the private companies came up. That is what Xi Jinping tried day before yesterday. But after Japan did that, then it still took them 15-20 years to recover. Not for these fellows. So they have a major problem. I do hope you like this video. If you like this video, press the like button. If you're not subscribed to 𝗏𝗏𝗏, please do subscribe. And if you're not a member of 𝗏𝗏𝗏, become a member. Right? And let me take some questions now. It's me thinking, thanks a lot for rejoining back as a member and giving so many benefits to others. Suresh Shanmugam, thanks for becoming a member. Sarkar, thanks again for becoming a member. So grateful to you. And Ravi Shankar, my namesake, thanks a lot for becoming a member too. I thank all of you for becoming members. Like I said earlier, becoming a member is the, more for, it's not for me. All money I get out of membership, and I put some money over it, and it virtually gets me into a break-even thing. I give it to a few young girls who can't study. And with a kind of, I know my viewership won't go up, but I'm sure people who want to understand will see, and those who need to understand are seeing my podcast. Many people think I'm a hawk. I'm not a China hawk. I know what China has done. A lot of things China has done. But I don't touch it because that's not my business. My business is to defend India, to ensure India gets the best advice, to ensure my people who are in service get the best view. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not interested. I'm not interested if we don't reach Chinese GDP. I'm happy with what we have. We will be there one fine day. We will go our path. Sabka apna apna rasta hai, not there. Don't worry. Okay. I think that's all for today. Thanks a lot. So many of you have attended and so many of you have commented. I thank my Chinese friends. I have nothing against the Chinese. I have a problem with China, this government, the CCP, not the Chinese. Right? They are poor fools who have been, sold a brick by their own masters. Right? I pity them, in fact. So I leave it at that. With this, thank you, good evening, and Jai Hind.